What is up, guys? Welcome back to the SUPES channel. My name is Matthew Ramos, and on this channel I am to entertain, inform, and inspire using the topic of discussion as always, which is superheroes. So guys, here we are today, back to talk more about Spider-Man Miles Morales. In my last video, I finished walking through the entire series of Spider-Man Miles Morales. It was such a roller coaster ride, and if you haven't checked out that entire walkthrough series, make sure to go check it out right now by pressing the card above. But at the end of the game, there was one crazy post-credit scene, and I want to make it very clear that today we are going to be getting into spoiler territory. So if you haven't played Spider-Man Miles Morales and you don't want to get spoiled, make sure to add this video to your watch later playlist and then come back once you've played the game. Or if you haven't played Spider-Man Miles Morales but you don't really care about spoilers, well then sit back and sit tight, because we're going to be talking about the upcoming sequel to Spider-Man Miles Morales and where the story is heading, because with the way they set up things at the end of Spider-Man Miles Morales in the post-credit scene, things are going to be amping up and we know where the story is going. So it's time to break it all down, talk about it, theorize, do it all. But right before we do that, make sure to hit that bell notification on my channel to get notified when these videos go up. With that being said, let's talk about the post-credit scene for Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Residents of Harlem are still feeling the effects of the recent citywide uprising of the group known as the Underground. While the Roxxon Corporation deals with a rash of lawsuits, newly elected City Councilwoman Rio Morales addressed the media yesterday to make a plea for additional public funds to assist with the...
Vitals are good, circulatory system healthy, brain activity normal.
He's been in there long enough.
Mr. Osborn, I understand he's your son, but his
I want him
disease could...
gone. Kurt.
But we may be underestimating the potential danger.
I said, get him out! Now!
So the post-credit scene for Spider-Man Miles Morales picks up exactly where we were at the end of the first game. At the end of the first game, in that post-credit scene, we saw Norman Osborn walking into his secret lab to reveal that he's been keeping Harry Osborn, his son, in like a cryogenic chamber. And in that chamber, Harry was just in a coma, but wrapped around him was the symbiote. The symbiote is obviously the alien life form that turns beings into Venom. And they're setting things up that Harry Osborn will become Venom in the next game. So now, in this post-credit scene for Spider-Man Miles Morales, the time between the first game and the events of Spider-Man Miles Morales have taken place. So time has gone by. I would say around 6 months have probably gone by since the last time we saw Harry, and now we see Harry in the chamber and the camera's positioned from like his point of view, and in the chamber we see the symbiote is still wrapped around Harry's legs. But probably the biggest thing out of this entire post-credit scene, because we knew Venom was coming, we know Green Goblin is eventually gonna come, but the biggest thing that this post-credit scene probably revealed is that Curt Connors, the scientist that ends up turning into the Lizard, is the scientist that's been working on Harry, trying to help Harry get better. You know, when I first reacted to this post-credit scene in my previous video, I didn't even realize that Curt Connors was that scientist because I didn't have my subtitles on. But I watched it back, I've watched videos on it. That's Curt Connors, the guy who's going to eventually turn into the Lizard. And that makes things very interesting because I'm interested to see what disease does Harry have. Because what I'm theorizing for the next game, now that Norman Osborn, Harry Osborn, and Curt Connors are involved, that's easily 3 villains for the next game. That's Venom, Green Goblin, Lizard. And you know they're gonna do Lizard with Curt Connors being involved now. They didn't have to introduce Curt Connors. It could have been a random scientist. But the fact that they introduced Curt Connors means that they're going to do Lizard down the line, for sure. So this is what I'm gonna theorize. What I'm theorizing is that with the disease that Harry Osborn has, somehow Curt Connors does get exposed to it. Somehow Norman Osborn gets exposed to it. And that's one thing that's important to note that kind of sets this up, is that at the end of this post-credit scene, Norman Osborn is demanding that Harry is released from this chamber. You know, Curt is advising him, no, he's not ready. He's not ready. And Norman is just like I don't care. I want my son out of that tank. And it ends with Norman staring at Harry, basically confirming that he's gonna get out of this tank. Venom is coming. But what Norman doesn't realize is that because he's so emotional and he just wants his son out of this tank, it might come at a big price. And that big price might be exposing him and Kurt Connors, and who else? Maybe other people, to whatever disease that Harry has. And who knows, maybe this is how Green Goblin, this is how Norman might get infected by this disease and turn into Green Goblin. Kurt might get infected by this disease and turn into the Lizard. I mean, it's kind of, I think you guys can see how similarly this disease can affect both Norman Osborn and Kurt Connors. And if they do decide to go down that route where Harry's illness just affects other people and turns them into animals like the Lizard, or maybe into just worse things like a goblin, then that, I feel like that also sets it also sets things up for Kraven to potentially enter the game, because we all know that Kraven is someone who's obsessed with hunting the most rare animals on the planet. And snap, I don't know if he's caught a big lizard before, like a lizard as big as the Lizard, or if he's caught Spider-Man. He obviously hasn't caught Spider-Man now, but now there's 2 Spider-Men for him to catch. So it also sets things up for Kraven to enter the mix, because now there's a giant lizard, there's 2 Spider-Men, and then there's also a big goblin. So it could make things very, very interesting having other villains from the Spider-Man universe that we haven't seen before enter the frame. They're going to set up Lizard, Green Goblin is coming, Venom is coming, and then potentially, now that all of these other pieces are involved, Kraven is probably going to enter the mix at some point as well. So the 2 big things that this post-credit scene really told us is that 1, Harry is coming out of that tank. Venom is coming. And that's something that gets me so freaking excited. And I actually really like that they're choosing to stray away from the comics and having Harry become Venom instead of Eddie Brock, because Insomniac Games thrives on the connection of their characters. The reason their first game was so good and that final battle was so amazing is because of the connection between Peter Parker and Otto Octavius. Otto Octavius was Peter's hero. Peter looked up to Otto. He loved him like a family member. And so seeing Otto go down that route of just becoming a villain, it broke Peter's heart. And that's why it made that final battle so good, because it was so emotional. In Spider-Man Miles Morales, the final battle was between Miles and his best friend growing up, Finn. He grew up with Finn. He loved her like a sister. So having them go head to head and having them cross paths, it was a beautiful thing. And that's where Insomniac Games thrives, off of the emotional connection of their characters. So now, if Peter's going to be facing Peter and Miles, I guess, but the main character is still going to be Peter for this next game. If Peter's going to face off against Venom, who better than his best friend growing up as a kid, Harry Osborn, to be the guy in that symbiote? And we all know Harry's a good guy. Harry isn't a villain, but the symbiote, it turns you into someone you're not. So Harry's going to be, just like every other final battle of each of these games, Peter is going to be once again put in a position where he's fighting a battle that he doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to fight Harry. But because Harry's being consumed by the symbiote, turning himself into Venom, he's going to have to. And then the second thing this post-credit scene tells us is that Lizard is coming. Lizard is going to be another added villain to the next game. And going into this next game, it's all or nothing, because they went so big with the first game, just introducing the entire Sinister Six from the beginning in the first game. Now for this next one, they have to take every trick out of their bag. And I think down the line they are going to go Spider-Verse, because I think after this next game where they do Venom, Green Goblin, literally the 2 biggest Spider-Man villains ever, they're going to do Venom, Green Goblin. They're also going to do Lizard. Again, the doors are still open for Kraven. Who knows, maybe Mysterio as well. But whatever the case may be, they are going to have to unload everything they've ever held back, unload it on this game, and then they could go Spider-Verse. I think they're going to do Spider-Verse, because I think that's the next place you go with this Insomniac Spider-Man Games universe, like a multiplayer Spider-Man Spider-Verse game. And then you could also do spin-offs with Spider-Gwen the same way they did it for Miles. So I think they are going in the Spider-Verse direction, but I think as of right now, we're focused on one thing and one thing only: the next game. And the next game, I'm predicting that it's going to come out in 2022, because I think what their plan is to come out with a Spider-Man game every 2 years. The first game came out in 2018. Spider-Man Miles Morales came out here in 2020. And then it only makes sense for the next game to come out in 2022. So guys, with that being said, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys thought of this post-credit scene for Spider-Man Miles Morales and what it means for the future of the Spider-Man games. With that being said, make sure to hit that bell notification on my channel to get notified when these videos go up. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.